Well, good morning and welcome to Coffee with the Pastor. Today we're finishing up the Sermon on the Mount. We've been looking at the Sermon on the Mount the last several weeks, and today we're finishing it. Today and he finishes it with a parable. We're looking at chapter 7, beginning with verse 24. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. Jesus has given his teaching, the Sermon on the Mount, and then he says, whoever follows them is like the man who builds his house on a rock. Now, if you've been to the Holy Land, many of you have that watch this, we see a lot of houses in the ruins where we visit that foundations are still there because they were built on rocks. You can go see them today. Magdala, Capernaum, all over. Bet Sheen we went, and you see houses and you see the structures that are built on rock are still there today. But there are some people who apparently built their houses on sand, and they may have went over to the Mediterranean because that wasn't been far from where Jesus was, and built their house on the sand. When the storms come, those houses don't make it. And that's the same way with Jesus' teachings. Jesus' teachings will be there no matter what. When you build your life around his teachings and base your life on his teachings, your life is just rock solid. I remember years ago, I was preaching through the Sermon on the Mount, and I always like to have a title for the sermon series I'm going to be preaching. And I just couldn't find the right title for the Sermon on the Mount. And I was asking God to show me a title. Now, this is going to seem strange, but I believe he gave me a dream. I dreamed one night that I was with Sylvester Stallone, and he was Rambo or somebody like that. And we were fighting bad guys, but we were greatly outnumbered. So we went and we hid in a parking garage across from some apartments, complexes, and stuff like that. But we were hiding, had a pretty good hiding place. But then my phone rang, and Rambo had said, you better get rid of that. They can track you through your phone. And so I got up, and we were like 3 levels up on the parking lot, and I threw that phone down and threw it straight down, and it hit the sidewalk, but it didn't break. I'm thinking, man, that phone's going something. Then the bad guys come, and the phone starts ringing. And my thought is, man, that phone is indestructible. Then I woke up, and I thought, that's the title for my series on the Sermon on the Mount, is Indestructible. Because when we live our lives following Jesus and following his teachings, it's indestructible. These principles he's given us are indestructible. They're going to be eternal. They're going to be there forever. Yesterday, I received a phone call from a young man from California. He had seen me on one of my online things that I do now. It's created a whole different audience for people. I get calls from people from Connecticut, Minnesota, California, and everywhere who watch. And I don't know how they get these, but they do. But he called me, and he had a real problem, and I was hoping he'd try to get him some help beyond me, because I think he was a little bit further along than I am. But he called and he said that he had demons telling him that if he didn't walk away from Jesus, that they were going to attack his body. That if he, didn't quit following Jesus, that they were going to attack his body, and he was scared. And I reminded him of 2 or 3 things. I reminded him that, number one, greater is he that is in me than is in the world. And I reminded him that perfect love casts out all fear, that he doesn't have to be afraid. And I reminded him that Satan was a liar, that Satan couldn't attack him unless God allowed it, and God wouldn't allow it if he brought it on. But one of the things that I think we need to grasp a hold of is that this gospel that we serve and these teachings that we serve and that we follow in Jesus are indestructible. They'll be indestructible in this life. They'll be indestructible in the next life. And they're worth following. And so I would encourage you to follow the teachings in the Sermon on the Mount. They're radical, but they're indestructible. And they will lead you and help you go through anything you need to go through. Well, I've enjoyed bringing the Sermon on the Mount to you. Next week, we're going to start kind of a different idea for a few weeks. I'm going to talk about grace and space, about how we can get along with others, both outside the church and inside the church, and how that's going to, in this day and time, it's getting very interesting, because there's a lot of folks who are have a lot of different opinions about what we should be doing, and how do you get along with people who have such differences than you do and I do. And so we'll look at how we can do that for the next few weeks. So I look forward to that, and I'll see you then. Bye now.